Hello, welcome to another episode of Forgotten Cemeteries, Pacific Northwest. Today we're at Raffety Cemetery. It's very quiet, a little eerie. It is kind of in the woods. It's located in North Plains, Oregon, Washington County. Alternative names include Mountaindale, Raffety SB, and Rafty, which I believe I read in the records. Rafty was just a misspelling in the records. If you do come here, there is a massive hill, exaggerating, down there. There's a gate at the bottom of the hill and it's quite a hike. This is my second run around of this cemetery because the first time I just wasn't happy with the way I presented it, and the camera was shaky because I didn't have a tripod and blah blah blah. And yeah, if you come bringing a vehicle, the gate down there just has like a little spring style lock on it. It's not even a lock, it's like a little I forget what they call it, maybe a carabiner if you will. But it is open to the public. I didn't see any signs about private property, anything of that nature. So let's go meet some of the local residents and hear their story. All right, a little history about the cemetery. It was established in 1893. Has 25 to 100 burials per the Oregon Burial Site Guide. Find a Grave, however, has 161 entries so far, and I want to say that was about 93% of people documented so far. The Rafty family appears to have arrived in Oregon in 1852. By this cemetery, I read that this is where the Rafty house used to be, somewhere around here, but I'm guessing that's long gone. The land was given from the donation land claim of Samuel B. Rafty by his widow Mary in 1893. Hence we have the establishment date of 1893. Overall, a pretty low-key cemetery in the North Plains with very little information. From finding a random website, the stones were not read until 1964 apparently. Most of the individuals here appear to be late arrivals into Oregon, around the 1880s for example. There's a few World War I war vets here. And there's quite a bit of symbolism here, IOOF for example. There's supposed to be quite the view of Dairy Creek Valley. I'll have to look at that. It's kind of like a panoramic view, but there's a lot of trees in the way. Maybe they mean like the fall or something. All right, figured we just start off with Samuel Butler Rafty. He was born in 1815. I believe he's the kind of like the OG, the head of the family, you could say. Samuel was elected captain of the family train during their migration to Oregon. There's two stories. One story said that he led a wagon train from Kentucky to Oregon in 1852. Another one says that he left Atchison County in Missouri to Oregon in 1852. Same year, but whichever is true, they traveled with 3+ families. The three big ones that were mentioned in this paper I found were the Staffords, Gillifords, and Ramseys. Altogether, there were about 62 wagons in the train. It was Mr. Rafty's duty to select the camping grounds each day where there was wood, water, and feed, and show the drivers where to head in, and kind of form a camping circle with campfires inside. Camping circles were made so that a few guards could keep eye on grazing livestock and watch for any signs of trouble, any potential threats like animals or thieves. Thieves were a big one. You know, Native Americans were kind of harassing them along the Oregon Trail, things of that nature. So first they crossed the Missouri at the St. Joseph, swimming the cattle for the first time, which must have been fun and scary. When the party reached Pawnee Indian country, they were held up and had to pay $1.50 per wagon to ensure a peaceful trip through the Indian country. This was located by poles across the road in 2 or 3 places before they encountered the Indian tribe, with the interpreter to inform the travelers in plain good English that they must pay or the Indians would stampede their cattle. Great way to start. So, long trip. The party crossed the Kansas to Grand Isle. They then followed the North Platte River, I think that's how you say it, Platte, to Fort Laramie, then Independence Rock. Independence Rock is a large granite rock. It's about 130 feet high, 1,900 feet long, and 850 feet wide. They would then make their way to Devil's Gate. Devil's Gate is just a natural rock formation, a gorge located in Sweetwater, Wyoming. Before you get too excited, because I'm hoping to put the pick in here, no, they did not travel through it like a fantasy movie. It was just sort of a landmark on the way, from my understanding, to kind of say, hey, you're on the right path. From Devil's Gate, they traveled to Pilot Rock. Pilot Rock, the name is simply what it means. It's another landmark once guided gold miners, trappers, and pioneers towards a pass in the Sisuku Mountains, I think that's how you say it. Fun useless fact, Oregon's last grizzly bear was shot near Pilot Rock in 1891. Came across that info. Somebody out there will probably enjoy that. From there, they traveled to south past the Green River, and then finally to Bear River. This is where the Oregon Trail and the California route say their goodbyes to each other, from my understanding. The Rafty's wagon train would then break off and travel to Soda Springs and then to Fort Hall. We then arrive at Snake River into Oregon, then finally into the Dalles. They would then drive down to the lower Cascades on the Washington side, then to the Oregon side. At the Dalles, the wagons and families were put on scows and floated down to the upper Cascades. A scow, I didn't know what that was, so I looked it up. It's kind of like a flat bottom boat. I could only find one pic, and I'll try to put that in the video. That was like before 1900, so I'm thinking that's kind of what it looked like, hopefully, to give you an idea. They then portaged to the lower Cascades, then again loaded onto another scow and were towed to the mouth of the Sandy River by Lot Whitcomb. The Lot Whitcomb was a side-wheeler steamboat which launched in 1850, and that would be 2 years before the Rafties obviously arrived in Oregon. There, they then hitched the cattle again to wagons and crossed the Willamette and proceeded on to the Tualatin Plains in the middle of the night. Samuel B. Rafty purchased a donation land claim on Dairy Creek. Dairy Creek is about, I don't know, 8-10 miles north of Hillsboro, to give you an idea on a map. His wife, Mary Jane Hoover Rafty, is also listed on this very large pillar. I'll try to get a big screenshot of it during the tour. The one thing I will say that's highly annoying about the Rafties, no offense, is every single girl in the family is almost named Mary, and every single guy in the family is named Samuel, I swear. But kind of get confusing researching the whole family. Here, though, we have Mammy, but she is listed as Mary in one document, go figure. She was born in 1867 in Wisconsin. I read that she started teaching at the age of 16, which was kind of incredible. It gives you an idea how they did things back then. She is buried with her husband, Samuel. Well, I figure I'm going to be in the shot no matter what, so sorry. It's bright. Very bright. It's about 7:30 in the morning. Sun's just coming up over the cemetery. Real pretty. So apologies on my shadow. So here we have Fred Stettler, born in 1847. There's zero information found on the Stetler family. I was kind of interested in their history, being that I think they owned a winery based on the story I found, but probably the worst story I've ever come across. The destruction of 2,000 gallons of wine. Isn't that a tragedy? In 1917, a man named Sheriff Applegate, armed with a court order, traveled to the Stetler winery and destroyed over 2,000 gallons of wine. The order of destruction was given by the district attorney to confiscate the wine because it had been sold contrary to law. The court labeled the wine as a nuisance. Now, I'm part Sicilian. That's kind of blasphemy in my opinion. So destruction was ordered. However, they allowed Stetler to keep 350 gallons for personal use. So some good in it. He could drink his sorrows away after watching a man named Sheriff Applegate roll out 40 to 50 barrels and bash open the heads, draining them into the earth. An estimated cost of $2 to $3 grand in wine was dumped. This was the largest seizure of alcohol in the state since Prohibition law went into effect. I was curious about when alcohol bans went into effect in Oregon. In 1917, Measure 17 went onto the ballot. It was called the Oregon Alcohol Prohibition. 58% of Oregons voted in favor of the measure. Imagine that today. It'd probably get 0% in favor. Its purpose is to prohibit, after January 1st, 1916, the manufacture and sale of intoxicating liquors within the state of Oregon, except upon prescription of a physician or for scientific reasons, sacramental, isn't that convenience, or mechanical purposes. Very sad story. All right. So probably one of the more unique headstones in this cemetery, probably any cemetery I really looked at, and that was primarily because of the little medallion they have here, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But here we have Lone Jake. Found his real name. I had to really search for it. It's Jacob Frederick Schlick. I hope I'm saying that last name right. He was born in 1850, and there was just limited information on him because it is a unique name, Lone Jake, so I instantly became curious. He was a bachelor that worked for the Rafty family. He did leave instructions for his monument. I'm not sure if he knew he was going to die or what was going on. Couldn't find the exact reason of death, but I'll mention something later that was a little confusing as well. But he wanted his 50-year-old lodge pin embedded in the IOOF emblem, Independent Order of the Odd Fellows. Again, this guy right here. But at some point after he was buried, some vandals came and would steal it, unfortunately. I'm guessing that they replaced it, though, with that little guy there at some point. He did come to Oregon in 1892. He was a member of the Connecting Link Lodge, IOF, in Boone County, Iowa, for 52 years. The command basically of IOOF is to visit the sick, relieve the distress, bury the dead, and educate the orphan. Usually you'll see the letters as well, FLT, listed here. Those mean friendship, love, and truth. In a nutshell, they're pretty much dedicated to community efforts and universal justice. On Find a Grave, I did see someone wrote, on Find a Grave, I think I talked about this before, but you can like digitally, put a little memorial or buy a little flower on there just in remembrance of an individual. Somebody wrote on Jake's memorial, watch out for those bears. I couldn't find anything on bear attacks in Oregon in 1932. Jake had no known relatives in the area as well. An interesting discovery was Jake's father built the first log cabin in the state of Iowa. However, when I looked it up, I found that it shows a cabin was built in 1827 according to the records by Louis Aridox, a trapper believed married to the daughter of Chief Black Hawk. The plot thickens. All right, and hidden here is Chester P B Wertz. That's a tough last name to say. Here you can see the Masonic symbol right there, and then the Woodsman of the World symbol on the right. Well, maybe you can see it. It's hard for me to see, but once again, the camera just really enhances things. We talked about the Woodsman of the World symbol, but not much on the Masonic one. Typically what you'll see is kind of a square and compass, and then you'll see the letter G in the center. And there's kind of a debate on what the G stands for, whether it's geometry or God, the great architect of the world. But Chester is kind of hidden in the bushes here if you come to this cemetery. Okay, I've been walking around for an hour trying to find Luck. Finally found him. So I don't know how I kept missing it. It's such a massive lawn headstone. Apologies as well, as my shadow is in the shot. But here we have Herman Julius Luck. He was born in 1865 in King Williamstown, South Africa. So we have our first South African. He's a late arrival to the U.S. He came to Kansas in 1865 first. He would marry Catherine Elizabeth Karst Luck in 1887, who's below him. She was born in Russia. Together, they would come to Oregon in 1889. One of the new things I noticed too was their infant Marie is listed here on the bottom, so she must be buried with them. And here we have Cecilia Mona Knuckle, born in Switzerland in 1825. Her family would arrive in Pittsburgh, PA in the 1830s. I guess they spent 90 days on a vessel destined for America, but I couldn't find any information on that specific vessel. Sometimes I can look back and it's crazy what you could find, the specific ship, how many passengers were on it, where they left from, where they arrived. Unfortunately, in this case, couldn't find anything. Unfortunately, her husband would die at the age of 53 and is buried in Dubuque, Iowa. Okay, I was promised an epic view of the Dairy Creek Valley, and yeah, that's not true. So there's a lot of overgrowth. Maybe that's why there's a bunch of trees everywhere and all the plants are taken off. You know, it's summer, so maybe revisit in the fall. Maybe it'll open up a little bit. I'll have to look into that. So apologies, I wanted to get that nice view and talk about Dr. David Jasper Rafty. He was a pretty prominent Rafty in the state of Oregon. He's not buried here, but at Wilhelm's Portland Memorial Mausoleum. And I'm guessing I'll never be able to go down there and film and talk. It's probably an indoor facility, I'm guessing. So I thought we can enjoy the view of the cemetery and tell his story, since he's the son of Samuel and Mary Jane Rafty. Dr. David Rafty was born in Missouri in 1844 in Christian County. We talked about his family's journey across the plains in great detail on Samuel's story, one of the first headstones we visited. And let's face it, you definitely don't want to sit through that again and hear me talk. So he graduated from Pacific University at Forest Grove in 1867. He would then come to Portland. Obviously, he has doctor in his name, so he wanted to practice medicine. He then attended and graduated from Willamette University at Eugene in 1881. He was also one of the earliest practicing physicians in Oregon. Dr. Rafty became very successful and was one of the most respected doctors in Portland. At one point, he was so loved, he was appointed by the Portland mayor at the time as one of the park commissioners. He was also appointed by the state of Oregon as one of the commissioners of the Lewis and Clark Exposition. His wife, Fanny Logan Rafty, is also buried at Wilhelm's Portland Memorial Mausoleum. She didn't come to Oregon until 1879 and was a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. However, I couldn't find out why. I know that to belong to the Daughters of the American Revolution, you have to have a family member that served in the Revolutionary War, like an ancestor. So I believe that's how it works these days. I'm not really sure on any other specifics. But yeah, no information on who her ancestor was that served in the war. I would have been interested in that. All right, time for the mini tour of the cemetery. I thought we'd start off on the outer edge of the cemetery, if you will. The one thing I'm noticing when I visit these cemeteries out in the middle of nowhere, the not so visited cemeteries, if you will, that's why I named it Forgotten Cemeteries, it's the plant diversity. You can see those are, I think those are foxgloves right there. We have some little daisies here, and there's a couple ferns growing here and there. And I don't know, I studied biology in college and chemistry, but you notice little things like that. It's kind of cool to see. Little things. Plant diversity. There's a little guy right there. So let's work our way to the cemetery. There's a giant fern. Looks like we have a plot up ahead. You might hear a plane in the background. That's because we are close to Harrison Cemetery, if you remember that video. It has like a little airstrip over there. I can't remember the exact name of the styles of planes, but they're like these small ones that look like little hot dog boats or something. I don't know if I'd get in one. That's a neat headstone. It's got the guy's picture put into it. I think someone's taking care of this because last time I came, let's see, Morris, the grass was like pretty high. It was about knee height, and it looks like somebody stopped by recently and cut it. That's kind of good. Clear up the headstones. Help out in some little small way. Also noticing this as well at the Pacific Cemetery. Like, you'll have your headstone here with the name, and then there's just like a kind of like a block of wood, and that seems to be pretty much everywhere. Like this whole row is that. And I don't know why. Maybe there used to be upright headstones kind of in that little section. Maybe they were once read all the information and maybe got vandalized, but not really sure. Like I said, sorry, I don't think they were read until 1964, the headstones, so maybe there was a lot of damage. Other than that, not really sure. Wish I had more information. But here's an example. There looks like there used to be a headstone right there, and now it's gone. I'm guessing we don't know who's buried there. The Rafty plot is very easy to find. You just look for the two trees there with a massive erected pillar over there. And there is that last name again, Northrop, which I can't find anything on. Another Northrop. I don't know if, oh, that's a tree built into it, I think. Haven't seen that before. Here's some Rafties. Little epic entrance into Samuel's little memorial here. On the outside we have some Rafties. Also have some World War I vets right here, U.S. Army. Right next to them is, oh, clear that off, World War II. So must be kind of a little bit of a war family later on in life. A little neat design with a hummingbird. I do see that a lot of hummingbird style headstones. I can't poke, I saw that a lot. This guy must have been a logger. I've seen that style with the truck with the logs at other places. Looks like somebody dropped flowers off at one point. And there's Samuel's information if you're interested. Very tall pillar. Try to get it in the screenshot. Jesus. There we go. That ain't going anywhere. Step over this little curb here. And then if you look at the other side, you'll see Mary Rafty, born in 1823. Hopefully this little tripod's helping with stability and getting rid of some of that shaking that I was doing before. It was highly annoying. So right here we have U.S. Navy, World War II. Rucker. Maybe one day we'll come back in the fall Look at this so-called epic view of the Dairy Creek Valley that they pretty much every single cemetery website talked about. In the back again, there's that wooden style. Looks like rose. Seems to be a lot of them like that here. And here's U.S. Navy. Doesn't say what war though. Usually they list what World War they served in, or like Korean War sometimes will be written on there. Here we have Roy Harris, Georgia. 4th Engineers, 4th Division. From Georgia. Let's see anything online about him. We have Theta Wilkes, I think that says. Lena Wilkes Walker. More Wilkes. And Dyer. My last name seems familiar. A lot of Dyers. Pretty recent too, 2004. And then we have that wooden plank block. This was a Dyer as well. At the very back of the cemetery, and once again coming across those wood style graves. These look pretty recent, yeah, 2004. So there are pretty recent burials here. Work our way to the outer edge of the cemetery. The only signs I saw were no hunting, so I guess if you come here, be aware, maybe there's wild animals around. It is kind of out in the country, not too bad in the North Plains. And like I said, when I come to places like this, I try to bring bear mace with me, and sometimes it's not for the animals, it's for the people. In my experience, if you know what I mean, where you kind of run into strange individuals once in a blue moon. This looks like, get away plant, maybe Fisher, 1976, and Lily White, being overtaken by this big bush. There's an older one. Keenon, 1886. Oh, late 1800s over here. And like I said, it was kind of cemetery full of very late arrivals to Oregon, for the most part, besides the Rafties, of course, and we talked about them. I'm seeing this every once in a while. There's stuff like this. No writing. Oh god, those look like gigantic bullet ants or something. I probably shouldn't have lifted that. And then you'll see these little markers as well, indicating usually a number correlating with the individual buried there, but I have not seen like any type of list with the numbers correlating with the individual. Like right here, I almost walked on one, so that says 31, and that's an example. At least I think that's what it means. It would make sense because they're everywhere. This is Maxwell's. Early birthday, it's 1821 on one of them. And then we have Fred and the wine story. It's a little tragic. Looks like there's a roundabout around the cemetery, so that's good. You won't have to reverse if you visit, kind of like some of the other cemeteries we visited. You might have to reverse all the way out. And there's a U.S. Army right there. Once again, it just doesn't list what specific war, but I guess you could just go based on the date when they were born, when they died. That'd be a good start. This looks like the Thompson's plot. There's one there. Born in 1834. One looks like maybe it got rebuilt at some point. I don't know. It looks like these used to be the headstones. Maybe this plate was put later on in life. I don't know. These ones completely swallowed up by time. Let's see if we can. Yeah, get out of the way. Don't know what that says. Maybe the camera can decipher it later on. Yeah, I can't read that. There's so much moss in there. These are a couple like that. Ozpelt, I came across that name as well, but came up empty-handed for the most part. Must have been pretty late arrivals because their birth dates are late as well. Somebody right here. Looks like FM to me, to my eyesight. Maybe it looks different to you guys, but again, just a little rectangular headstone leaned against a tree. We see that a lot, don't we? And then we have Lone Jake right here. Pretty cool headstone. I'll get a little closer to the IOF emblem. Hopefully you can see that. Try to steady the camera. I know the sun glare is trying to get in there as well. But yeah, not the original, I'm guessing, because someone stole the original. And maybe they replaced it with another one by the looks. There's Rafty over there. Johnsons with pretty late birth dates. This person's last name's Smoke. That's cool. I don't think I've ever known of Smoke. Here's a pretty unique one. It looks like they signed their headstone with their own signature. Wish I knew who it was, but 1872 to 1939 is what I'm getting. Pretty epic signature there, buddy. Here we have Charles Marcus Ekstrom. That's a very unique last name. U.S. Army, World War II. This is what I mean. Like, usually when it comes to the older war vets, I was always seeing this kind of white marble look that looks really unique. It seems like it lasts the longest too out of all the headstones. Don't know if it's a better grade material, if you will. Maybe someone out there who's a tombstone concrete expert might explain that. I'd like to know about that white marble look and the reasoning behind it. I'll have to search that. But right here, once again, one of these headstones that used to be headstones, maybe? That little plank of wood there where they stand up. There was an individual I was looking for who I think's grave is that style, and you could see all of them are kind of beat up for the most part, but his name was Enoch Armstrong. His birth date was unknown, but he was born like in 1893, and his story was kind of tragic. He died via strangulation. I guess he hung himself. Newspaper clipping from 1893 read, "When discovered, life was extinct, but death had resulted in strangulation, as the rope long enough to permit the toes of Enoch to just touch the floors." So that was a little disturbing. Come across some pretty heartbreaking stories when you look into the cemeteries. It's a little odd. Kind of see like the earth almost sinking there. Oh, maybe that's why it's still kind of a fresh burial. 2019. Maybe that's why. Give Mother Earth time, and I'm sure it'll grow over. These ones are pretty recent over here. This seems to be where the cemetery edge ends for the plot, so let's head over to one more little section I gotta talk about, because I did notice something. So you can see those little shrubs coming up. I don't know what that means, but they're kind of everywhere over here, these little guys. But then you'll see this right here, and I'm wondering if that used to be a headstone or a memorial. But you can see they are kind of lined up strategically. There's a lot of them, and off in the distance you'll see a lot of them, and they seem to be surrounding the Rafty Memorial. So it's just a little thing I picked up on right away. It's a good idea, whoever did it. That way nobody trips over it or runs it over the lawnmower. He's a unique guy from Wertz. the cross. And that is it for the cemetery tour. If you have any recommendations on other cemeteries to visit in the state of Oregon or maybe even southern Washington, feel free to comment below. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a great day.